Uber Gem BU, first year of issue. And also you want to know that this is a different hub type than later issues. You see Liberty's thumb sticking out. The thumb on the first couple years is shorter than on later years. And also as a lot of you know, the skirt lines were weakly hubbed. They weren't as deep in the hub or the dies. So there's, on Gem BU coins, the skirt lines are going to look weak. It says one tiny tick buried in the wings on the reverse. So again, comparing a mid-state to the proof, the edge, the lettering to the very edge is very strong. On the proof, the skirt lines are much more deeply incised. And also on the reverse, the wings are just that much sharper. Here's a later date. So this has the long thumb. And also very tiny little contact mark. Again, there's not, these are absolutely clean to the naked eye. Here's a 67 for early year. You see a few more contact marks in this one. And this is a later date, very weakly struck. But again, it's taken into account because the estimate on this case would be weakly struck. And there's, forget about full thumb, she doesn't even have a hand. Okay, so this is, again, flat due to striking. So remember, if it's a BU coin and it's flat, it's still going to have full luster. If it's an AU coin and it's flat, there's the absence of luster. So there's also weakness on the eagle's leg as struck. So here's a 16 again. So now we're seeing a little bit more noise in the center of the coin. So the noise becomes a little bit more evident, and this would be more evident to the naked eye, but still fully struck. So there's a late date in 541. This is, if you want to type out this series, this is the one to get, 41, right into MS67, a few $100, or proof. Here's a 42S again. Oops, go back up. This one is weakly struck. This is the coin that stopped me, where I quit collecting Walking Liberty halves many decades ago. I kept looking for this in a full strike. I never found one. They just weren't done. For whatever reason, San Francisco ran the presses at a lower pressure to make the dies last longer. I don't know, Philadelphia must have been cheating them on dies, and we're not talking based on a year, we're talking based on decades. For whatever reason, Philadelphia is being persnickety with dies, for San Francisco especially. You know, the west of the country was growing, and they weren't getting the dies to feed the population commerce. Here's an 18D and 3, and again, we're seeing more divots in the center of the coin. And again, here's a 19D, extremely weakly struck, really badly struck, but totally with luster. In weakly struck, it still has full luster. In wear, there's no luster. If this was wear, there would have been the coin is totally lustrous. Okay, it may not be because it was weakly struck, the most cartwheel, incredible luster, but it still has complete unbroken luster. So if we had wear to this point, this thing would be gray. It wouldn't be white anymore. So here's a 1 question mark. Again, it looks like wear to me. That's discoloration. I don't think that's strike. But that's why I do these ringers. So here's an MS61. This MS61 question mark. And that MS61 is not the same. Again, this has a lot of contact marks, but it has complete luster. And here's an MS60. It's tough to find MS60s that weren't like hideous. So I wanted to have a coin that wasn't at the very low end of the grade, even though it's a low end grade. So this has a long scratch, which probably gave it the grade, but still there's no break in the luster. So here's a AU58, and this still has most of a full thumb. Very, very, very great cartwheel luster in the fields, totally there. Just the barest hint in the very high points in the middle where the luster is beginning to lapse. So on a 55, it's more typical. You definitely see the center of the eagle's breast starting to show more rub and wear in the center of liberty. Those areas. So a 50, again, it's much more typical of you. At this point, there's no doubt. But you want to make sure you've got it more than 55% of the luster so you don't go into XF territory.